Coming up, lappers rejoice with recent events drawing big crowds to Ipswich Central. New waste transfer station location to replace Riverview. Don't get swooped by the magpies. Exit 32 closed for 6 months. Ipswich Tribune v Teresa Harding. And Galvanised festival about to start. Williams and Ashleigh Mac join me for another yarn over the back fence. It's Monday, August 21, 2023, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Walter Williams has called Ipswich home for 32 years, and you will know his voice on many TV and radio ads. And he was previously heard doing his own show on QFM, 4BH, Star FM, River and 4BC. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you, mate. I sit in a small room and talk to myself.
And Ashleigh Mac was born in Ipswich, and growing up in Ebbw hasn't affected him at all. Well, not very much.
Except I'm really depressed because the house I grew up in is for sale and I reckon they're going to knock it down.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
How depressing is that?
Let me finish my spiel for you, Ash. You're the first voice on QFM in 1990. You're still a media tart and you own a small business serving great coffee at St Andrews. So officially welcome, Ash.
Thank you, my friend. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, before we get into what we were going to talk about, what's the deal with the house?
Oh, I just noticed that, you do the search around on realestate.com and I thought, gee, that house looks familiar. And then I realised, holy dooly, that's the house I grew up in with mum and dad, right? And Mrs. Dobie's house next door, they're being sold as a packet. I don't know if you've noticed down at Ebbw, they've knocked down a whole heap of houses and they're building commercial stuff across the old glideway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Opposite the glideway, across the road.
I'll check it out next time I'm cruising along Brisbane Road there.
It's the one that looks like it needs a paint.
Okay,
same thing happened to me years ago in Townsville. Our family home just got obliterated and turned into a block of units. And it's sad, mate. It's a sad day. I feel for you, Ash.
People got to live somewhere. Hey, listen, while we're talking about cruising, let's talk about lappers because it has been a topic of conversation over social media of late with those organised private events, which really went off like a frog in a sock from what I can see. Now, Council has the subject listed as a notice of motion at this week's Council meeting, so I guess we'll hear what that's all about on Thursday. But not everyone loves the noise, especially local residents. Walt, are you classified as local for lappers?
Oh, yes. I can hear them all lapping, constant. But I tell you what, ever since the 40K limits come in, I have noticed that it is a little quieter in the region, which is good, in the CBD. Fantastic. Thank you, Council. Actually, Main Roads Department for that.
Main Roads and Council officers got together to come up with the 40K speed limit. So you think it's working? Okay. Ash?
I have a confession. As you know, I grew up in this town and my first car was an old EH Holden. And I lapped. At 17 years old, I used to do the Saturday morning thing. You'd pull up at Crib and Foot's bus depot there and you'd pick up your girlfriend, and then you'd do your laps around the block. And the other thing that we used to do is when we got down to the intersection of East Street and Brisbane Street, if there were like 4 of us in the car, the trick was we had to all get out and change seats before the light turned green. So you'd be jumping out and jumping in the back seat and the mate would take over driving. That's the sort of thing we used to get. They don't do that.
Just like an episode of Happy Days.
Exactly.
Well, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, actual former lapper myself too when it comes to the old hometown. But the only thing that I have a problem with is the people who just sit there and rev the guts out of their engines and then take off at crazy speeds in restricted speed zones. So can we put an end to that? That'd be good. Everyone loves a lap, but you do that, you cruise. That's what lapping's about. It's not about trying to be the loudest or the fastest. It's a show and shine kind of moment, isn't it?
You'd have to be a little bit silly though, because that street is absolutely chocker with cameras. So
and that's the other thing I wanted to say is I think we should have a little bet here with our over the back fence. Who's going to be the first to get a ticket?
Out of the 3 of us.
Out of the 3 of us.
So far, so good.
That's why I go
Fingers
around the
crossed.
outside.
Yes.
Touch wood.
Let's talk about the businesses along the lapping streets, particularly the top of town. And the photos were fantastic with people outside the hotels and cafes. But do all businesses like the lappers? What do you think, Ash?
Well, I don't see. Look, any cash flow is good cash flow. We need to get people back into town. If it's working, I've got no problem with it, as long as everybody's insured. We don't run over any little old ladies.
Walter?
Well, there's a real culture around it too, which is a good thing. You look at Ungerman Brothers with their 50-style diner, and then you've got the retro diner across the road. There's that kind of culture that comes with the cars that are all beautifully restored in a lot of cases. Some of these are classics, not plastics. And I think part of that is the clothing, the food, the fashion, everything. So it's all wrapped up in a nutshell.
Well, I'll give the lappers the thumbs up, although I do know a couple of local residents who absolutely hate it simply because of the noise.
Probably not car people.
Okay, let's move on to something else. Ipswich City Council has released a fair bit of information about this. A site for a new waste transfer station and animal pound may not on the surface be the most exciting news, but for people who try and get into Riverview to dump their rubbish and get rid of stuff, it'll be great news.
It can be such a huge queue.
Oh, incredible.
Facebook is good for that, because what happens is I think there's an unwritten rule these days that if you're in a long line, you actually post it on Facebook and say, hey, this is the line. You take a picture of the line when you're sitting in the traffic and other people know not to go down. But don't go down on a Saturday morning. It's ridiculous.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Walter, do you frequent the tip?
No. I don't even have a trailer or a tow bar or a bull bar or anything of that added to my car. It's just a regular car, and I leave that up to the whole process that takes place out the front every Monday morning with the rubbish,
With
whether
the
it be
wheelie bits, yeah.
the recycling of the vegetation bin or the regular bin.
It's going to be a much bigger site, and the council also plans to move the pound from West Ipswich, which, as you know, is a prime flooding spot. So that'll be high and dry if it moves over there as well. So all in all, I think this is a good move. It's been many years coming. I know the previously elected council had been looking at it, and it was only a matter of time, and looks like it's finally going to happen.
Do you know what would be really good, though? In Mackay, I was on the board of a thing called the Pioneer Employment Service, where we helped people who were disadvantaged and intellectually challenged people to get jobs. And one of the things we set up was in conjunction with the dump, you had to, when you drove through, they would go through your stuff and pull out things that could be recycled. And
for
we
a tip
actually
shop.
had a shop. Now, the old days, you'd go down the dump and you'd go scavenging when you're a kid. But this, basically you pull the stuff out of the trailers and sell it, and you could buy bike frames and stuff and do bikes up for your kids and all that sort of. It worked really well. It'd be nice to see them do something like that here.
Well, it is on the plans, so let's hope the tip shop does come up. I've frequented the Lockyer Valley tip shop, which is also run by a charity out there at Gatton, because that's also a place where you can take your containers for change. But no, it is a great setup out there at Gatton, so if Ipswich can do half as good a job, it's going to be a winner. Spring has sprung, gentlemen. Don't get swooped. Magpies. Be on your best alert for swooping magpies. And I think as kids, we've all been swooped, whether it's at school, on the way to and from school. What's your worst swooping story, Ash?
Oh, well, we were driving past Bendamba School only probably 2 weeks ago and watched this poor bloke on a bike being swooped by a magpie, right? As he's riding the bike on the footpath, poor bugger. But we won't get swooped here. My wife has Maggie. Maggie is the, and it costs me a fortune in those worm things. I think they're $80 a bag or something. No, seriously, she orders these worms through the mail, and she feeds them every day outside. But they're very tame, and they actually eat out of her hands.
So that stops swooping, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Walt?
I just mow the lawn every fortnight, and they eat the worms out of the grass and the ground.
Yeah,
it's a lot cheaper.
Butcher birds are great for that too. Yeah, out here. Yeah.
they say that, these will only swoop about 150 metres, according to the Deputy Mayor, Milligan. But I've been in a situation where those little buggers will swoop and swoop until you are off their block.
Yeah. No, when they get the bug, they're very persistent.
Why do you think Alan and I have got no hair?
I wished I'd put a copyright on those helmets with the spikes sticking up, because I thought of that idea years ago, but I never put it into fruition.
They're zip ties.
Yeah, they use zip ties, but there are professionally made helmets now the kids wear that have the spikes on top so that they won't land on them.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it can be very scary for little kids and big kids as well, for that matter, especially when they sneak up on you unawares. I've been swooped while on the motorbike. That's an interesting experience. You hear the tap on the helmet. But talking to experts about swooping magpies, I had one on the show last year, and you can become friends with magpies, but the trick is, I think, to make friends with them before the breeding season.
And they bring their families around.
They certainly do. They certainly do. We've got a couple of regulars here, so there's no sign of swooping yet, but you can tell when they've got babies and eggs because they just get a little bit more keeping an eye on you, following you.
Yeah.
But so far this season we've avoided the swoop, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
If you could only train a plover.
You can never train a plover. Never, ever. Here's a community service announcement. The Centenary Highway at exit 32 closed for 6 months. Now, that's a scary headline.
What are they doing down there?
It's all about the Springfield Greenbank arterial going to 4 lanes through that area. And it's also improving the exit off the highway. So it's a bit of a teamwork there from state government and local government. They're claiming it's closed for 6 months to fast track it. So let's hope they don't go over 6 months. Otherwise, their fast track timeline will be blown. But all in all, a much needed improvement at that exit because, as you know, population growth, more traffic, people going to the train station. So it can't come soon enough.
No, they'll end up with 4 lanes, as you say, 2 left, 2 right, and they need that. At the moment, it's a single. It's a joke.
Yep.
It's just bottlenecks.
It was left to go a bit too long, but better late than never. Let's do our own version of Media Watch. And my subject today, gentlemen, is the Ipswich Tribune versus Teresa Harding. Now, if you've been following along at home, there's been an ongoing bit of biffo between the Tribune and the Mayor over various claims and counterclaims, and the Press Council, which is the adjudicating body over news reporting, has come out mostly in favour of Teresa Harding with a ruling, and I'll put a link in the show notes so you can read that and make your own decision. I'm going to mention this right now, Walt Nash, that traditional advice has been not to launch World War III with your local media, but have times changed with social media? Is that why we're seeing this?
I'll just go to Twitter and find out what they're doing there. Yeah, you're right. The rules have changed. It used to be we would tread lightly with the media, but these days you can do anything. Look at Trump.
There was a rule many years ago, you'd never win an argument with the Courier Mail, simply because of the circulation at the time. And to a degree, the Courier Mail still influences other media's agenda, even though its influence has been diluted somewhat. But the gloves are off now between the Mayor and the Tribune. Who knows where that's going to end up, especially with an election looming in March.
Do you have to win the argument, or is it as long as they spell your name right, you're getting the publicity and people don't remember anyway?
You might have a point there, Ash. Walt?
Oh, it's like they say, opinions are like bums. Everyone's got one, and now they all have a way to voice it through social media.
Okay, we'll leave the Mayor and the Tribune there and see what happens the rest of the year. The Galvanised Festival's coming up. It's the 3rd year. There is a lot happening. Will you be going to any of the events? Walt, you've got some good stuff happening in Tulma Place.
Oh, yeah. I love going up there Tulma Place always has something good going on. Let's face it. I was at the handcrafted markets the other weekend, and I would love to get but it is on Father's Day that they're having the big one with the beards and the bikes and everything. And my children usually want to organise something away from that. But you'd be right at home there, Alan, with that look.
I'm seriously thinking of nominating. This would be called the Golby look. And if you go on the website and have a look, they've got a couple of famous Ipswich fathers there. Mr. Galby had a beard very similar to mine, and I didn't even realise it until I looked at the website.
You know, one of the things we need to do, though, is to, whoever put it together, the Ipswich Festival's website, when you open it up, has video running at the start on Galvanised, and it is really well done. So whoever did that, pat on the back, that's fantastic.
So if you're looking for lots to do, check out Galvanised, ipswichfestivals.com.au. Time for some reminiscing. Walter, you've suggested Swift's Sports Club.
Well, they would have live bands at the sports club, and I remember once catching the wonderful Tommy and Phil Emmanuel playing together. Phil no longer with us, sadly, but it was just a fantastic concert at Swift's Sports Club that I'll never forget, because these guys are absolute geniuses at, the whole finger technique on the guitars. Worldwide, world class, those two, Tommy and Phil, and both ranked in our top 20 guitarists in Australia. But it just reminds me how many good things they used to have at the club. And now I was walking past this morning and looking at it again as I did my walk around Cameron Park, and I thought, what a shame we've got this facility, in the centre of Bevelle there, that's sitting vacant and useless at the moment. And I just thought maybe there's things we could do with it to help people who are at the moment finding themselves through no fault of their own in a lot of cases, homeless or whatever. I know we can't put them in the club because the club's got a big issue with asbestos, etc. It has to be demolished, essentially, from what I understand.
Is there something they're going to do with that land there, or what?
Oh, there was a lot of toing and froing between council selling it and not selling it, and to be honest, I just can't recall where it's up to. How about I take that on notice and we'll resolve that for next month?
I'm a great believer that we need to keep the green space there. I'd love to see it just demolished and turned into the rest of the Cameron Park, because Cameron Park does have some great memories for me, because at the QCWA Hall, I had my 7th birthday party.
And they've tidied up the old hall. It looks good. They put a new lick of paint on it.
It looks good. I was also, now brace yourself for this one. I was a child model when the QCWA used to put on their little fashion shows.
Oh, wow.
I was so cute.
So you were cute once. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. It's all gone. Not now.
Our best days are behind us, aren't they?
Yeah.
I want to do a shout out to Michael Crutcher, who was a former editor of the Courier Mail, and Jordan McDonald, who works with him at 55 Comms in Brisbane. They have a great weekly podcast called Sourced, and it's all about the art of engaging audiences. So if you like that sort of thing, can I recommend you subscribe to The Sourced? I have it on my must-listen round of podcasts each week. So add it to your favourites, man.
I was going to say, can you put a link in the notes?
I will do that. Let's talk sport. We haven't done sport for a couple of months on Over the Back Fence. The Ipswich Force are the men's NBL 1 North champions. I've been out of the loop a little bit of local basketball. So the NBL 1 North champions, well done to the Force. It was a 3-game series, and they claimed their first state title in club history against the reigning champions, the Gold Coast Rollers. We beat the Gold Coast.
Good one. I've got to beat the Gold Coast. But don't blame yourself for being out of the loop, though, because I reckon I know what's causing that. And that's the Tillies. I don't know if you noticed, the Tillies were so big, no one got a mention. They just soaked up all the media, and there were so many good stories you had to go looking for to see who won the netball in South Africa, and a whole heap of other teams winning. Exactly. You missed out on hearing it because the Tillies took all the media.
Yeah. And we've even got the Boomers playing at the moment. You're talking basketball. They're doing great things. They beat the French the other day, our Aussie Boomers, no matter how bad the French were behaving. But
it's been a good while for me since I've been to a game at Bundamba, but it was always exciting. I must get my skates on and get back there.
Which reminds me, Alan, how much is corn these days? $1 a year.
Are you putting some material together for Stitch and the Switch?
Next
use that
night, this Friday night.
And gentlemen, I want to finish off with some extra good news. Last month we had on the show Rob from the Walkabout with Rob series on YouTube. And because Rob very kindly shared our podcast, last month's Over the Back Fence was one of the most listened to episodes of Ipswich Today. So I've got to say thanks to Rob, the YouTube guy,
Rob.
with his Walkabout series.
He does a great job, that boy.
And on that happy note, we'll get on with our day. Thanks for joining the show, guys. Thanks, Ash.
See you next week.
And thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Al, and congrats to everyone. My shout-out is for the Ipswich P&C at Ippy East for their show and shine on the weekend.
That wraps up another Ipswich Today. Don't forget to look for handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is listener supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio, or play Ipswich Today on smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.